Hello everyone and welcome back to 5 Red Lights. This is episode 5, well, whatever date it comes out. I'm here with Nathan.
Hello.
Hello, and myself, obviously, Anthony. So we will start with the race review. Ricciardo wins again, takes his 3rd victory. I'm pretty happy about it, to be honest.
I'm kind of running out of words to describe how much I love Ricciardo.
He's just a legend who's smiling on the podium. Well, he's always smiling.
I just cannot believe how I thought Ricciardo was going to do pretty well compared to a lot of other people, but never could I imagine this well. Never.
No. I mean, he started in 5th, was it? Vettel obviously in 3rd, and you know, he managed to trump Vettel again.
And crazily now, I think he's only 36 points behind Hamilton.
Well, exactly. He's, what is it, about 60 behind Rosberg. Alright.
Yeah, a little less. Little less.
You know, with double points at the end of the season as well, it's pretty, you know, he's got a pretty good shout at it if Mercedes keep messing up like they have.
I think that'd be the best drive performance since Prost in '86. It's similar, like the Williams being ridiculously fast, but Prost just hanging on in there. And yeah, but Daniel, I mean, wow. His driving style is just immense. His pace, he keeps the tyres well. He's aggressive in overtaking. He's so consistent, and he's great in qualifying. He's just like nearly the full package, if not the full package.
Well, if he's like this now, then next season he'll possibly even better. I mean, I hope he carries on. I hope he doesn't sort of fall back next season, you know, because if he doesn't quite manage championship this year, then he's definitely got a strong chance next.
Yes, indeed. Well, anyway, let's talk about the reason that Ricciardo did win. I mean, he did a very good job, but the real reason here, Mercedes take each other out. The big talking point of the race. And we could spend hours on this.
Well, we could. We already have. But yeah, it's an interesting topic because there's so many sides of the penny. You know, obviously Hamilton going into turn 5. Am I right? Turn 5.
Yeah.
Rosberg coming out, you know, from the slipstream, coming down the main straight, goes to the left. They both take the right-hander, and essentially Hamilton keeps the racing line, and Rosberg tucks himself in. He's quite too far behind to actually, you know, make a move or get ahead, and then he clips Hamilton's wheel with his wing. Rosberg loses a bit of his wing. Hamilton has a rear puncture, and essentially led to his retirement in the race. It can be seen from either side. I mean, like I said, we've already had this discussion, haven't we?
I'll basically sum up my point of view, I guess, and you sum up yours. My point of view is that there's nothing deliberate about it, first of all, because especially, first of all, there was, you know, little contacts like that. You see that a lot, and it doesn't result in a puncture quite a bit of the time. So, you know, it's not like Rosberg knew that was going to take Lewis out. Also, though, it's just like Lewis has, I think, really interpreted what Rosberg said wrong. And I think Rosberg is still annoyed at like having to back out of Bahrain, Lewis not giving us space, probably the same in Hungary. And, you know, he could have cut the corner to avoid a collision, but I think at that point his decision was, like, I'm not going to back out of this. He's going to have to be the one to back out. And if we come together, so what? That's kind of on his shoulders. Even though it's not, that's, I think, his thinking. And I think he shouldn't have gone for it. It's silly. As Toto and Nicky said, lap 2, you shouldn't be doing something like that. You know, Rosberg had plenty of other chances to try and get past Hamilton. I think the whole thing is just a real shame.
Yeah. I mean, my opinion, like I said, we debated I don't think it's a racing incident. You know, regulations say that Hamilton is entitled to his line because Rosberg was definitely less than half a car behind. He pretty much was like his front wheel was aligned with Hamilton's rear wheel. As we saw on the lap before, Sebastian backed out in the pretty much identical move and took the escape road. Rosberg hung in there. I don't think it was purposeful to an extent. I don't think Rosberg intended for Hamilton to get a puncture. I just think Rosberg was trying to prove a point, put his car there, saw what happened.
Yeah, I agree. He was trying to knock it down.
Yeah, I think it was wrong. I think, as you said, he should have waited. There's plenty of opportunities for him to overtake. And you know, it's a poor time in the season to be to be trying out your teammate like that, to be testing him.
I don't know if it's a poor time in the season. I think it's more a poor time in the race. I agree it is a poor time in the season, but I think it's a bigger issue that it was just why do that on lap 2?
Yeah.
It's not like it's the last lap and you're going for it or something. You could understand it a bit more if it was that. I think that's what Mercedes... I think Mercedes were really more angry just about the timing of it than anything else. Because, you know, if it had been later in the race and they had such a lead, then it wouldn't have mattered so much and they could have still walked out of a 1-2.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, we could really talk about this forever, but
yeah,
I just want to say as well to anyone listening that, like, people shouldn't be booing Rosberg on the podium, especially before they know all the facts and stuff. And at the same time, like, I see people saying, like, he should be really punished. I don't think the FIA should retroactively give penalties. It was probably a mistake not to investigate it at the time, but I think that's done and buried. We just need to learn for the future. I think they shouldn't be involved in anything now, unless some serious, like, new information comes to light. And at the end of the day, Nico didn't, in my opinion, he didn't do this on purpose. He's still a nice, pert guy. You know, if you want to support Lewis and everything, that's fine. But as I put on Twitter a couple of days ago, you know, people, the British fans were, you know, booing Ayrton Senna when he crashed out in Britain because, you know, he wasn't getting on with Mansell or Prost, and they love Mansell and Prost. Obviously, Mansell a bit more. And it's like, you look back at that footage, and it just makes you really sad that he was getting booed by, essentially, I consider us. And I don't think we should be... We should, like Eddie John said at the podium, you should show respect to these guys.
Yeah, I agree. So, moving on, post-race, Magnussen got a penalty for some quite aggressive driving. Obviously, he ran Button off the track, but the one that gave him the penalty was him running Alonso out on the grass.
Yeah, at turn 5, not when he ran him out in the same corner as Button.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought Magnussen was way too aggressive.
I mean, as I said, I think it was very borderline. I mean, I can understand why he got a penalty, but I think he was just scraping it, like, to the point where he can get away with that sort of stuff.
I think he was just scraping it against Button and Alonso that other corner, but the one at turn 5, pushing someone right onto the grass and stuff like that, Alonso could have crashed out with that.
Yeah. I mean, it is a dangerous play, especially at that speed, but yeah. So he got relegated. Where did he finish? Was it 8?
12, I think.
12. Yeah. Well, after he got his penalty, he was put down to 12.
Oh,
yeah.
sorry, you mean where did he finish before that?
Yeah.
Finished 6.
Or was it 6th?
Yeah.
It shows how much attention I was paying. so yeah, he finished 6th and got demoted to 12. Obviously that promoted Alonso, Button, and a few others. So yeah, hopefully he'll learn from it. I mean, he was still doing some good racing out there. Obviously, especially with that specific move, he just took it a bit too far.
Yeah, indeed. Okay then, so now we move on to the weekly news, and since last week's episode was a bit later than usual to cover like a week and a half, there's not that much news this week. Well, first of all, we've got the news that as Lotterer took Kobayashi's seat, Carlos Sainz Jr. and Roberto Merhi might also be taking the Caterham seat. Carlos Sainz, driver in Formula Renault, a lot of people thought he'd get the Toro Rosso seat. Red Bull will be paying to get him a drive like they did for Ricciardo at HRT. And Roberto Merhi, he's a Mercedes DTM driver, and Mercedes are going to pay for him to drive, apparently.
So I think this is kind of good for Caterham. I mean, it's sad to see Kobayashi's sort of lost his seat. But it's good that Caterham are testing out drivers, because obviously one or two of these people are going to get seats for next year. So, you know, it's good that they're testing all these people out and, you know, trying different drivers, because, you know, they want the best and, you know, the most cost-effective ones as well.
Yeah, well, I think obviously the situation people prefer is if they were taking Ericsson's seats and Kobayashi would still get to be there, and then maybe we'd have a better judge of how good a driver they were, because like Lotterer out-qualified Ericsson very easy, but you know, how much is that Lotterer being good and, you know, Ericsson being not so good?
It's difficult to say. I mean, like I said, we didn't get to judge it from the race either, because obviously Lotterer had his problem. So,
but I think it's great because, you know, I think that the more drivers we get in to try out, like the better the crop will end up being. And the problem with F1 so many times is just drivers cannot get a seat at all. Really good drivers, they just can't even get the foot in the door, and this can be the foot in the door for a lot of drivers.
Well, exactly. And like I said, it is good for Caterham. I mean, this year's, you know, gone for them. This is like a distant memory already. So using their time to try all these new drivers is a good step for them next year. So next up, Chilton regains race seats. So obviously this has already happened. You've probably already heard about this. The story was that Chilton, basically something to do with funds. It was never fully described what the problem was, but the finances weren't there, and essentially Rossi was to take his seat for Spa. They sorted it out halfway through the weekend. Well, in fact, I think it was by Friday, the second session of Friday practice, and Chilton's seat was re-secured. So I don't know how this will affect the rest of the season, whether this is going to be a common problem for the rest of Chilton's races, or whether it's like sort of sorted for the rest of the year. I'm not too sure.
I think this has really put Chilton in situation in the spotlight, because you know that I'm really not a Chilton. And who is a Chilton fan, really? But I have always been saying that he's like one of the biggest paid drivers out there. I mean, there aren't many left, frankly, and he's one of them. But I feel like that the whole paid driver thing, I don't know if it's just the British media, but it slips under the radar. I remember in the F1 show, Natalie Pinkham asking him about paid drivers and stuff, and asking him questions about it. And I was like, does she know that he's paying for this drive? Like, I just feel like a lot of people know it, but I think this is firmly put into the spotlight. Yes, his dad is paying loads for his drive. Okay, so now moving on to the discussion point for the week. And as the Mercedes took each other out, we shall be discussing this week the most costly team fallouts in F1 history.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously the two major players who we can't not talk about in this discussion is the late Ayrton Senna and Alan Prost. Two big figureheads in F1, and you know, famous for their rivalry. I think it's interesting because, you know, there's so much riding in F1, yeah, emotionally, physically, that when you've got two really strong teammates, you can understand how you know, it gets stressful in there, because obviously they're racing against each other, especially when, like for example this year as well, that the fact that the car's so much better than the rest of them that it is just them two fighting. They're not battling anyone else. It is just them two, which makes it so much more personal.
Yeah. Well, what's really interesting is how it's just one thing set it off in a way, lights the fuse. Like in the first season of Senna Prost's teammates, Senna won the title, and well, technically Prost should have won the title, but there was a stupid rule in place about only counting the best 11 results. So even though Prost scored more points, he didn't win the title, which is, you know, let me tell you that F1 are only just putting in silly rules about points. They've always had them.
Yes, yes.
But it was the second season, and oh god, I can't remember what track it was now. I want to say Imola, but I feel like that's wrong. But they agreed whoever gets the lead at the first corner, they will not be attacked for the rest of the first lap or so. Like you'll have to wait, and this was agreement between them. The team weren't involved, so they have the start. Prost goes into the lead from second place. Everything's fine. Senna backs off. Yeah, I know it was Imola. Gerhard has a massive crash, and they restart the race. Prost gets the better start, takes the lead. Next corner, Senna re-overtakes him, and then after the race, Prost is like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "That wasn't the start. That was the restart." And that's the relationship broke down because of that one thing. You know, a lot of the time though, it's team orders being evolved. Like a couple of examples, there was Villeneuve and Pironi, where at the Italian Grand Prix, Villeneuve had been kind of the number 2 at Ferrari when Jody Scheckter was there and respected team orders. He was leading the whole of Monza. It was just at the start of the season, and he was told that Pironi was told, "Yep, 1-2, we're going to stay in this position." Last lap, Pironi catches up to him, overtakes him, and you know, that's the way it is.
Yeah.
And he won the race. And Villeneuve was so angry about it that in the next race, he tried to beat Pironi in qualifying, crashed and died. So that's the extreme that you can get from teammates falling out. And here's the thing that I want to warn Rosberg and Hamilton about, because I was saying this to you maybe yesterday. Say next year Red Bull have a better car. Like they're kind of on par with the Mercedes. Mercedes and Red Bull are fighting out. In 82, no, was it 81? Damn it. No, I think it was 81. In 80, Alan Jones won with Williams. In 82, Carlos Reutemann, who's his teammate, he decided to ignore team orders and win a race ahead of Alan Jones earlier in the season, which pissed Jones off because they had an agreement that if there was a certain amount of seconds and they had a lead over other cars, it was really complicated. It's like if they were a certain amount of time apart and they were a certain amount ahead of everyone else, then they'd switch positions. And Reutemann ignored it. In the last race, Reutemann and PK went for it. They were going for the title together. Jones wasn't in it. But Jones forced his teammate a ride and didn't let him get past him. And PK went on and won the title. And this might happen with Rosberg and Hamilton, say, next year.
Yeah. It's very possible. I mean, like I said, there's obviously a lot of comparisons between Prost and Senna already before this, but now this incident's happened, there's just so many more comparisons, you know, to add to that. But it's always been in Formula One. There is always that rivalry between teammates. Not all of them, you know, come to light, but obviously going back to Vettel and Webber and their incident in Turkey.
Yeah, I never forgot about that.
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing, though. I mean, it's just a constant thing. Before that, it was Hamilton and Alonso in their first season, and then that cost them the championship. Well, debatably, anyway.
I mean, even like teammates that got on really well, like Coulthard and Hakkinen, who, you know, were really close. Even they had their problems. Like, I think at Austria, Coulthard hit Hakkinen at turn 1, dropped it back, and Eddie Irvine won the race ahead of Coulthard, and then Hakkinen comes third. But, you know, Hakkinen was in a battle with Irvine for the title that year, and only just won it. And, you know, he was pretty annoyed that his teammate took him out.
Oh yeah, I mean, But that's the thing. I mean, as much as they'll always put a face on, they're consistently battling with each other because there's only one person you can compare them to, and that's their teammate because they're driving the same car. So obviously they always want to better their teammate, and you're never gonna get complete harmony with that.
I think probably the closest they've got in recent years of having two great drivers, like, because obviously the situation seems to be pretty good when it's a clear, like, one is better than the other, like say Alonso and Fisichella or something.
As long as team orders aren't involved.
No, but in terms of Alonso is clearly better than Fisichella, and Fisichella knew that. So that was fine because Fisichella was just happy to get a win or something occasionally, you know. But in terms of like having two great drivers in the team, the one that worked was Hamilton and Button.
Yeah.
That went 3 years, and they even hit each other at Canada, but that didn't even impact their relationship really. Like, they got on, they like each other,
And they still do.
Yeah, you can see how much Jensen was supporting Lewis before the British Grand Prix and stuff.
And his comments recently about Spa as well.
Yeah.
I mean but that's good, and it's nice, especially with someone like Hamilton, who two out of all his teammates, he tends to have quite an aggressive relationship with. Obviously going to Alonso, and now Rosberg, who they were like good friends back when they were kids, and now they're like rivals.
Well, you just kind of remind me actually. Even a better example of Alonso Fisichella is Hamilton and Kovalainen, where it's clearly like this one is clearly a lot better than the other one.
Yeah. I mean, there was no issues with Kovalainen.
Yeah, but that's because Hamilton was usually way ahead of him. The problem is when you're close together on track, that's when the problems arise.
So we move on to our speculation section, and this week it's Toro Rosso. Position at the end of this year, what do you think?
I guess where they are now. That's where I'm going to go for 7th place, right? I mean, they're scoring quite a few points, but they're clearly way behind the ones ahead of them, and they're kind of way ahead of the guys behind them. So
I feel like this is going to be a common thing on each of our speculation sections. We keep saying they're going to finish where they're at now. No, but I agree as well. I think they'll probably finish where they're at. Like as you said, there's such a big gap between them up next, and I can't see Lotus improving much. So yeah, I imagine they'll be staying where they are. Driver lineup for next year, we can't really speculate because it's already confirmed. Daniel Kvyat will be staying on, and it will be Max Verstappen to race the youngest racer, which should be interesting for them. I think it's potentially quite a strong lineup. Obviously, we still got to see how Verstappen holds up, but if they get a good car next year, I think Daniel Kvyat could do wonderful things with it.
I do, but I mean, regards to the potential position next year, I think Kvyat will be great, but I still can't really see them being in the same-ish place, like kind of being in that 7th-ish spot. I mean, they've kind of been in that spot for years now, really.
It's a shame because I don't quite understand Red Bull's perspective of this team, whether their aim for them is to just stay where they are, or because they don't want to have a sister team competing with them. I don't know if there's like a contract that Toro Rosso aren't allowed to do any better than Red Bull. I mean,
well, 2008 they did, so maybe I guess.
I mean that's the thing, but I know. Obviously, Red Bull want their main team to win, but don't you also want to just take as much points as possible and as much money as possible? Isn't that the whole point of being in F1, to make money?
But at the same time, Red Bull, they have to let the team stand on their own 2 feet, because they have to focus on themselves, and they can't be constantly babysitting this other team, because that'll be a drain on their resources as well. So, I mean, I'm sure their hope is that that they built this team and that he'll just get better, or they would have already hoped it would have got better as time has gone on.
I just feel like they've stagnated. Like, they're always a team I forget about.
Yeah,
Because they don't change. You think Force India, they started right at the back, and year by year they've worked themselves up. Much like what Marussia are trying to do at the moment, and they're going in a positive direction. Whereas, except for back in 2008, where they had a pretty decent car, they haven't really, shown that they can make a difference.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, potential position for next year. You're right, it's probably going to be around the same, but I hope they can do better. I hope they can, really spice it up and take it to the likes of Force India and McLaren, unless McLaren improve, because everyone wants McLaren to improve. Yeah, that's just wishful thinking, I suppose.
Probably. Okay, so our community question for this week, we shall be asking to you guys: should the FIA have investigated the Rosberg-Hamilton incident? And with that, we're bringing an end to another episode of 5 Red Lights. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. For now, it's goodbye from me and goodbye from Scout.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everyone.